Assalamu alaikum everyone. Today we will be presenting overview of Azure Database Services, how Microsoft Azure provides modern cloud-based data solutions that help organizations store, manage, and scale their data efficiently. We will walk through the different database offerings, their purpose, and even create a sample Azure SQL database together. Before we begin, let's quickly introduce our team. I'm Shazal Hamza and with me is Abdul Nafi Khan. Together we prepared and organized this entire presentation. Here's the agenda for today's session. At first we have introduction and Azure data overview. Then we have relational database services, also the NoSQL and in-memory databases, big data and analytics platforms in Azure. We will also be covering migration and enterprise features, monitoring security and cost optimization. At the end, we will be going through hands-on Azure SQL database creation and configuration. By the end of this presentation, you will have both a conceptual understanding and hands-on experience creating your first Azure database.
Now, let's start our journey into the Azure Data Universe. So, Azure provides a complete set of modern data services that let businesses store, manage, and analyze information at any scale. For example, imagine three powerful kingdoms. The first one is the relational kingdom, where structured data and ACID transaction rules. The second one is the NoSQL kingdom, which is flexible, schema-free, and which is built for massive global scale. The third one is the analytical empire, which is the powerhouse for data warehousing, machine learning, and big data processing. So, together these form the Azure data landscape, which is a unified ecosystem that adapts to any application requirement. So, over here we have Azure SQL Database, which is basically a cloud native SQL engine. So, Azure SQL Database is a fully managed cloud native SQL engine that removes the burden of updates, backups, patching, and infrastructure management. It comprises of two exciting things. The number one is the hyperscale mode, which basically scales up to 100 terabytes of storage within seconds. And the second one is the serverless compute, which basically means that the database goes to sleep whenever it's not needed and wakes up instantly whenever it's needed, which basically saves the cost. So it's a go-to choice for many developers and database authorizers. So moving forward to Azure SQL Managed Instance, which is basically the bridge between on-premises SQL Server and Azure. So Azure SQL Managed Instance gives you almost 100% of compatibility with SQL Enterprise. For example, if you're migrating from an on-premises SQL Server and want features like SQL Agent, CLR integration, Service Broker, database mail, etc., then Managed Instance is the perfect home. It even supports VNet integration, which basically virtual net integration, keeping your database isolated and secure inside your private network. Azure brings open source power to the cloud through open source databases. So, Azure offers fully managed version of MySQL, PostgreSQL, and MariaDB, the same engines developers love, but with high built-in availability and automated maintenance. It basically highlights flexible server for cost control, PostGIS timescale database extensions for geospatial and time series applications, zero redundant architecture for business continuity. This means you get open source freedom with enterprise grade scalability. Cosmos Database is one of the Azure's most impressive service and a planet-scale NoSQL database. It basically gives you single-digit millisecond latency, 99.999% availability, and global distribution with one click. Cosmos Database supports multiple APIs, for example, Mongo Database, Cassandra, Gremlin, table storage, and its native JSON API, making application migration extremely easy. If you need a database that responds instantly worldwide, then Cosmos is your weapon of choice. Azure Cache for Redis is your ultra-fast in-memory store, which is basically designed for lightning-quick performance. So over here, we will be talking about sub-millisecond latencies, as Redis is all about speed. This is basically perfect for catching expensive queries, session management for large apps, real-time applications like chat or leaderboards, and publisher-subscriber messaging systems. Azure also brings additional goodies like active geo-replication and advanced Redis modules. Moving forward to big data and analytics. So, Azure empowers enterprise-level analytics with three major tools. The first one is the Synapse Analytics, which is a unified platform combining data warehousing plus big data in one place. The second one is Azure Databricks, which is an optimized Apache Spark environment for massive parallel data processing and ML workflows. And the last one is Data Lake Generation 2, which is optimized storage for huge analytical data sets. Together, they let you store, process, and analyze data at any scale, whether you're running SQL analytics or training ML models. Over here, we have Azure Data Factory. So, Data Factory is Azure's extract, load, transform, or extract, transform, load powerhouse. Think of it as the factory assembly line for data movement. Its benefits are that it supports 90 plus connectors, including Oracle, SAP, Salesforce, Amazon S3, and more. The second one is that you can create visual pipelines without writing a single line of code. And the last one is that with mapping data flows, you design transformations using drag and drop interface. So ADF, which is Azure Data Factory, makes sure data flows seamlessly across the systems. Azure Database Migration Service is built to help companies move from legacy database to Azure seamlessly. So it is basically a zero downtime migration hero. It supports SQL Server, MySQL, Oracle, AWS RDS, MongoDB, and many more. Secondly, it offers online migration, meaning with zero downtime. And lastly, it requires proper virtual network connectivity to ensure secure connections between source and target. So this is the tool used by modern enterprises migrating at a large scale. So Azure's data services use a layered security model, which provides multi-layer protection. It consists of private link plus firewalls for network isolation, Microsoft Entra ID for centralized identity management, and lastly, transparent data encryption, which is also called TDE for data at rest, and TLS encryption for data in transit. So basically, security is not optional, it's built into every layer of Azure's database ecosystem. Moving forward, Azure ensures your database stays online even in worst case scenarios. In order to do so, it provides multiple services so that your database be highly available and can be recovered from any disaster. The first one is the zone redundancy, which basically protects your database from data center outages. Second one is geo-replication, which copies your dataset to distant regions. And the last one is the failover groups, which helps manage multiple databases together with automated recovery. So, with the help of all of these services, it ensures business continuity across cities, regions, and even continents. As we all know, that monitoring and insights are basically crucial and critical. So, Azure provides full telemetry through Azure Monitor, which after monitoring provides performance metrics and alerts. Secondly, we have SQL Insights, which gives deep view into the SQL performance. And lastly, we have Log Analytics, which basically log queries using the KQL. So, you can detect bottlenecks, diagnose failures, and optimize performance in real time using the monitoring and insight tool of the Azure. In the modern world, everyone cares about saving money. So, Azure gives you powerful cost control tools. The first one is the reserve instance, in which you prepay for 1 or 3 years and basically save up to 72% of the cost. The second one is the Azure hybrid benefit, which is vast in nature, but one of the examples is that it makes you able to reuse on-premises SQL license. The last one is the discounted rates for non-production, which includes development and testing prices. It is accompanied by budgets and alerts, which basically help you avoid overspending. In this way, you can always tag your resources so you can track and filter costs easily. And in this way, we have concluded our journey into the Azure data universe.
Now, let's move into the practical part of our presentation, a quick start guide on creating your first Azure SQL database. This will be a step-by-step walkthrough where we will create, configure, and query a database directly from the Azure portal. Before starting, you need a few things ready. First, you need an active Azure subscription. Second, you must have the right permissions, such as contributor or SQL database contributor. And if you're creating the database via script, you will need the create database permissions. One more thing, Azure provides a free offer where you can use serverless compute up to 100,000 vCore seconds every month with 32 GB of storage, which is perfect for learning and testing. Once inside the portal, search for SQL database and click on create. Here's how you will fill the basic details. For resource group, create a new one and name it my resource group. As for the database name, enter my sample database. If you haven't already created a server, click on create a new server, name it something like MySQL server and adding a unique suffix since server names must be globally unique. For the authentication part, choose SQL Authentication, and set the login to Azure user. This completes the basic section. In the Networking tab, we configure how the database is accessed. Under Connectivity method, choose Public Endpoint. Turn on Add Current Client IP address so you can connect. For security, keep Allow Azure Services turned off during this lab to avoid overly broad access. This ensures secure but functional connectivity to the database. Next, we configure compute and storage. Set the service tier to general purpose. For compute tier, choose serverless. This allows Azure to automatically scale up or down based on workload. Billing is based on vCore usage per second, making this an efficient option for labs and demos. This provides a nice balance of performance and cost. Once the database is created, you can test it immediately using Azure's built-in query editor. This is a lightweight SQL client right inside the portal, meaning no need to install SSMS or Azure Data Studio. You can run tsql commands directly, works with SQL login or Azure Active Directory authentication. It's perfect for quickly verifying table creation or running simple select statements. Azure Database Migration Service or DMS is used to move data into Azure. Here's a high-level workflow. Select your source like on-premises SQL Server or AWS RDS. Select the target, which could be Azure SQL Database or managed instance. Choose online migration if you want zero downtime and continuous replication. One key requirement is ensuring DMS has proper VNet connectivity to both the source and target databases. Azure's cost analysis tool helps you keep track of your expenses. You can view your accumulated cost over time, see which specific database uses the most resources, set up budgets and alerts to avoid overspending. And a best practice is to always tag your resources. For example, environment is equal to lab, making it easier to filter and track costs. This brings us to the end of the presentation. Thank you so much for your time and attention. If you have any questions about Azure databases, configurations, or the lab walkthrough, we would be happy to answer them.